Hello, I'm Jason Skill and this is Painting with Skill Lesson 6. In this lesson I'll be looking at my watercolour palette, how to use it and what it does and why I designed it. I primarily designed it really with my students in mind. When I was watching them paint in lessons over the years, I became kind of frustrated by the fact that there were so many palettes all the way around the room that they were using, all different, that it was difficult to set a task and then all cope with it in the same way. And I also found in my own mixing I was frustrated with some of the aspects of palette designs. It wasn't the palette's fault, it was that I was looking for something that would kind of pull everything together and make a palette that enabled you to do flat mixing and container mixing and kind of solved some of the problems that I saw that were there. And I would think about this a lot, and then one day I was lying in the bath and thought of the shape that I thought that the palette needed to be for the base that would solve the problems of container mixing as I saw them. So let's look at that shape. I'll draw that for you. Basically, the idea was that when you looked at this is looking at it in profile, that's looking at from the side, as if you've cut through something, that when you looked at this, that's what that would look like from the side. And the problem with the slant well tile was, as I've explained in the container mixing video in lesson 5, that you end up sticking the paint here and then it drains down into the wash, and I was frustrated at the fact that this really, the paint source needed to be moved away, and this is what struck me. But basically what I should do is just push that along there and then make the wall there. We'd get rid of this because it was no longer needed, so we'd create this shape. So if I draw that again for you, basically go flat and then down and then chamfer out so it's easier to clean. So I put my paint here, there's my brush, and then I could mix the paint here for most of the smaller jobs, and then when I needed a larger amount of paint in a wash, then I could create that in the wash, but it wasn't butt up against the paint. So when you look at my palette, that's really basically what I did. I created an area where you'd squeeze the paint, you put the paint at the top of the shape, just turn that around so the camera can see it more easily, and then you could pull the paint and maneuver it here and create probably enough to do most general smaller painting jobs there. And then if you needed more paint, I could just put some more water into here, I could manipulate the paint and push it gently down into the wash area, and whatever I created in the wash, let's imagine that I've even changed the colour of this, so I'm thinking, well, actually I want to start with a greenish wash and then I want to make it, say, go more blue. I can even think about mixing in two kind of separate areas, this top area and the wash, so you've got two kind of controlling points. Now the other thing that I found frustrating about the old well tile design was its width. The width, it was just, to me, it just was too narrow. It didn't really give you very much space to maneuver the brush side to side. Most people, when you watch them mix with it, would sort of use the tip of their brush and tippy-tappy that about. So they would mix the colour, and you never felt like you could put the brush down and actually play with the shape of the brush. So I felt you needed something almost as wide as two of these, which when you look at the design, it's not quite as wide as two, but it's basically I created a width that would enable the brush to be maneuvered about. And also, if you were using a wider brush, this is a hake, some people call it a hacky, and you could basically tease the paint and control it using a wide flat brush, or dip into the washers and then use those. A lot of the problems I felt which were associated with container mixing was the fact that you couldn't get a bigger brush into this thing. It seemed huge. You were sort of ending up using like little bits of the end side of it trying to manipulate the paint. So much easier when you have space to dip in and out of with a larger brush. The other thing that was very useful that I came up with, I thought, was again here when you were mixing an amount of colour, because the walls of this were not very high, what happened was you'd sometimes mix paint and it would flip into the next container. You'd just have this colour right, then some colour would flip into the next, and then you'd have to re-wipe and remake the paint. So I didn't want that to happen, so I made the wall height of my palette reasonably high so that when you were mixing there wasn't very little chance of it flipping over into the next container and ruining that colour. I also made all of the shapes within the palette rounded so it was easy to wipe out. So if I just wipe that out, instantly clean, there's no sharp corners. Now imagine that I want to make a lot of washes and I want to make them quickly. What I then thought of doing was using gravity, because what you see people sometimes do is they'll lean their palette on something, they'll find something to put it on, let's imagine again, something to lean it against, and then by it being on a slant, then it enables gravity to work with it. I thought, well, I'd made this so that the lid could go into the base, which would save space. You didn't have to think, where am I going to put the lid? I'll shove it back in the bag, whatever I brought. You can literally just keep it on the table. But when you put it inside the lid, it was just about perfect angle for using gravity. So again, if I want to make washes very, very quickly, I can use gravity to just tease the paint at its edge, work it through, and gravity just helps take that down. I can just bring the paint, water in and stir it. Or, as some people prefer to do when they're making washes, large amounts of it, they'll take the paint out the water pot, sorry, the water out of the water pot, just taking it out there, and then they will tease the colour in and make sure that there's no bits by using this larger area at the top before we get to the wash. So again, it separates the paint. I don't have to stir it round in this area. The mixing happens before it actually enters into the container area. Another thing about the paint in the lid would be that I can basically take the base and push it slightly further forward, and I can still mix, manipulate my paint, whatever I want to do here. And then if I'm thinking, well, where am I going to put my brushes? I can just put them in this space, so you can put brush, pencil, whatever into there if you want, and still mix ahead. So again, it's a sort of a safe, saves you space on the table if you need to. Now you'll regularly see me in each of the videos kind of wiping paint up or squeezing paint out, and what you inevitably get when you're doing that is paint on your fingers. Now, it's a good idea, a general practice, to basically wipe the paint up. This is a wipe, and to make sure that the paint doesn't stay on your fingers for any length of time. You often see that painters have been painting a long time will be quite careful about getting paint on their hands. Certain paints will have things in that you don't necessarily want to go through your skin or to ingest. So basically, if you're going to have a sandwich or have a cup of tea, I would do it after you've finished painting, or I'd make sure that you have washed or wiped and cleaned your hands before you would do so. Okay. Durability. The palette, this one's been about 7 years that I've been using it. It's very strong. The monocoque construction is a little bit like looking at a wing shape of basically beams in the construction. The other thing would be that you can squeeze the paint out into the lid and put quite a bit into each of the top containers. I normally put 2 colours into each of these, and the amount of height that you have because of those high walls means that the paint really, I've never seen it actually come as high as the top of these panels. And when you're putting it into the lid, so I'll squeeze some paint out into the lid, these stud points here are designed so that when you put the lid on, the paint that's in the lid doesn't touch the base, or if you're putting the base into the lid, paint in the lid doesn't touch the base there either. Now, I normally use 2 watercolour palettes. The reason I do that is that it enables me really to have my colours separated into, basically this one deals with the blues and the greens, and I have them in order from cold to warm, and then I have the greens going from cold to warm, and then I'll deal with my yellows in a space, then my reds, and then my earth colours. It's a good idea to think that you're going to put the paint in families, so you put the blues together, or the yellows together, or the reds together, greens together. One of the things you'll see often when people are painting is they just get the paint tube and they squeeze it anywhere without thought. They just, oh, I've got a space, I'll squeeze it there. And what that does is it probably ruins the shape of the flow of your palette design, whichever one you're using. Think about where you're putting the paint. So I always put it at the top, giving me space to mix. Also, they'll squeeze colours together. They may put a blue in the same space as a yellow. Well, as soon as you start mixing with the blue, it may leak into the yellow or the yellow into the blue. You're going to make green. If you've got two blues together, you're only ever going to make blue. If you've got two reds together, you're only going to make red. So there's less chance of you making mixing mistakes if you keep them in family areas. Okay? One other thing to think about with using a larger brush with this is it does give you the facility to perhaps mix the colours and make, say, a larger wash. And then if you're wanting to control the paint and control the shape of the brush, you just pull it out the wash, which you've pre-mixed, so you can have as much as you like, and then just use the lid to basically manoeuvre it, shape the brush to how you want before you paint it on paper. So you can get the benefits of being able to pre-mix and use a larger brush implement. Yeah, okay, you might have to sort of wipe between that and the next, but it is a good way of being able to pre-mix your colours and then use that brush in that way. There's going to be lots of different ways that I use the palette in the subsequent videos, and hopefully that will give you other ideas about mixing. What we're going to do next in video 7 is we're going to look at, really, you've got so far the materials that I've shown you, you've got a size 12 mixture brush if you're following the videos and taking on board what I've said. You'll have a palette, and you'll have water pot with one water pot inside another, and some paper. I would suggest you could just use some cartridge paper to begin with. That's heavy drawing paper, or you could even use computer papers for some of the exercises. What I want to do next is just look at how you get the tonal value that you want to when you're mixing, how you get the right amount of water to paint on the brush, and we'll just look at making some shapes and getting some control with your brush use. Rather than going on and showing you every other colour that you could use and different brushes and paper, we'll just sort of stall it on the materials of those basic 3 things that you need for counting the paper, and we'll look to get you to be able to get more confident in just mixing colour and mixing the tone and making brush marks. So that'll be in lesson 7. If you want to watch all of these videos in series, then I suggest you go to my website. That's jasonskill.com.